Standing in the presence of your future. Once we realize the past is past, once we realize the present is a potential, the future is its actualization. My effort, my attempt in this episode is, in some sense, poetically making contact with the collective future self of the species. I wanted to speak about the future because if we don't speak about it, we are trapped in our past's presence. Okay, let's dive into this. Makes it easier for me to communicate this. So standing in the presence of your future. Okay, let me see, what can I say? Standing in the presence of your future. So what do we mean by presence? What do we mean by presence? What does it mean to be present? What do we mean by future? So when we look at the sentence, standing in the presence of your future, standing is being present. So it's like being present in the presence of your future. So standing in the presence of your future, it would be kind of like, yeah, being present as your future self is present. Now, the idea of future self is not something that's popular. It's honestly one of the cool factors of my own life. When I was raised, when I was born into this world, in my conditioning, there was, in some sense, there was religious ideology, which its meaning had not truly sprouted in my youth, its implication. And so pretty much I was introduced to the idea of the soul. I was introduced to the idea of God. I was a religion. I was also introduced to the idea of past lives. And so it was something like there's past lives and then there's your present mind and everything else is in the unknown, except at least in religion, there is discussions on the future self, right? So your future self would be, in some sense, what it is worth. You see? It's like quality. This might be bizarre, but think of it this way, that the earth has manufactured human beings, and these human beings, there's a quality control, right? So imagine that you right now create 8 billion robots. okay? And then you want to choose which one of these robots is good enough to actually enter, like to be in the presence of other human beings. So it would be like a higher life form creating a lower life form to check that lower life form to see if it's worthy of the higher form, okay? And when it comes to the self, usually the idea is in the sense of form. For example, like, you know, like when Batman was a kid, his future self was like him punching bad guys in the street. Do you know what I'm saying? Like he was in the presence of the idea that would become his future self, right? Something in those lines. So the idea is that the human mind can fathom. If I tell you, like, yo, I'm gonna put a candle in front of you, I'm gonna turn on this candle, like light this candle, and I'm gonna ask you, what is the future self of this candle? So on some level, there is a future self always, but what it is the question. So right now, the future self of my physical existence, in the far future, it might be non-existence. Do you see? So when I'm saying I'm standing in the when you hear the sentence standing in the presence of your future self, you're hearing it actually in two ways. You can hear it in multiple angles. So standing in the presence of your future, if your future is in some sense nothing, then you are standing in the presence of the nothingness of manifestation, of existence. So we are standing in the presence of our future if our future is nothing. But if our future is something or is a specific someone, so the idea will follow the predestination paradox, the causal loop. It would be, in other words, something like this, that there wasn't a time machine, you created a time machine, you went back before you were born and you changed the variables so you did not exist, for example, right? So we can say standing in the presence of your future, it's either the future has come to you or you have gone to the future. In the outer realms, we cannot go to the future. In the inner realms, we can. So let's dive into this a bit deeper, right? There's pretty much like ultimately two conceptual angles, and then there's the sentence, right? So standing in the presence, right? So being present in the presence of your future. Now, how are we all present in our future? If we were to look at the average human being, just look at any human being and be like, yo, is this person standing in the present? Is this person standing in the past? Or is this person standing in the future? I've come under this theory. This is my method, my approach. My approach is that if my mind can move ahead of my body, it can perceive the variations, the changes of my body. So my mind is actually poetically the presence of the future for my body. This is a very important statement, one that you might not have ever heard. That your mind is your future. Why? Because that's where it's being accessed. Right now, if somebody says, yo, man, Mr. Within, you want to know your future self? Well, you got to know time. Where is time? And then the question comes, where is time? In some sense, it would be another way of saying, where is the experience of the change of existence in space being measured? You see, so when a shape, when a form changes, in a changing world, in accordance to how it can remember its change, there is time. Time is in actuality a relationship of memory. And there's quotes like, we created time so everything doesn't happen at once, stuff like that. Now, this talk, there's an abstract part of it where I'm going to explain to you my experiences with my future selves. Okay, with my future self. and what ended up happening actually. So long story short, okay, I'll start from my personal abstractions. I pretty much had an experience, right? This was years ago, where the reality shifted. It shifted in context, not the stuff that was in front of me. It shifted in what it implied, what existence implied to me. And so there came a moment where I was like, yo, man, look at this. You know, we zoom in. Let's say you look at a tree, you zoom in on a tree, you see the molecules of the tree. You zoom in, you know, you see the atom. Let's say you see subatomic particles. You zoom in, you see quarks. You zoom in, you keep zooming in. And what you find is that in existence, there is more existence within. That means there is levels to reality. Right now, as I'm giving a talk, my heart is simultaneously beating, right? So I went into this mode, into this view where I was like, yo, man, what if there isn't one life simultaneously happening? That means if I was to think of the life of the human being, we can say there's 8 billion human lives parallel to each other happening based on the population. So when it comes to the human species, no problem, multidimensional AF. Look at that person, a different dimension of human perception. Look at that person, a different version angle of Earth, right? So the multidimensionality is not a problem when it's in a general category. When it comes to specifics, we're like, WTF, hell no. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's, I started functioning under the impression that I am not in a chronological universe where the time is in accordance to Chronos. I'm in a Kairos based reality. What that means is that there are parallel dimensions. That means right now, like, I'll give you an example. Imagine right now there's a fish underwater, there's a chimpanzee on a tree, and there's a human being sitting on a car giving a podcast, right? We can see the scale, the spectrum of existence, right? So there is a spectrum. Now the question is, does this spectrum apply to the individual? So could there be a spectrum of lives that you're living simultaneously? Could the soul not be the energy or the power for one life, but could your soul be powering multiple lives through multiple minds, through multiple bodies? It will be equivalent to being like, yo, man, you know, you were a seed planted in the soil of the earth, and now, you know, you have branched out into parallel lives. And these lives give fruit, and the fruit and the seed of that life goes to another life. So it could be that our parallel lives are functioning through the archetype of a gardener. Do you know? Imagine they ask this transcendental being, hey man, what do you do for a transcendental living? You know, it's like, nothing much, man. I'm giving, you know, trying to advance the civilization. That's what I'm doing for my transcendental living. You know? Yo, can you imagine? Like after this life, we all like imagine every person who will die, they go after this life. They're like, oh my God, Earth wasn't a playground. It was a workstation. I was at work, not doing work. Do you see? Do you know that feeling? Do you know that feeling of like being at a place where a certain activity must occur, and then not doing that activity, and then leaving that place and being like, oh my God, I should have done that activity. You know? Anyways, I'm gonna dive deeper into this. What I'm trying to tell you is that I as a human being, as a human personality, lived for some time under the impression that there were parallel universes, there were parallel versions of me. There's moments where I feel I have made contact with a group of my future selves, but they were in stealth. And this sounds bizarre, but the way I'm telling you is through an intuitive knowing. So there's moments where you know in accordance to form, and there's moments where you know before the form actually happens, which convinces you that you already know. So what I experienced was a relationship with my parallel selves, but all of these were in some sense the incompleteness of my life becoming complete. Ultimately, I have reached the conclusion that it's not my life. I am not the main event. I am the main event for my own eyes. Like when I wake up in the day, I'm like, I have front row seats to my own concert, you know? When I'm singing in the shower, I'm like, oh my God, these tickets are worth hundreds. Oh man. See, when it's a good talk, guys, you know, it heats up your body and you got to take off your jacket. And then you suddenly end up in a Schrodinger's paradigm where you're like, yo man, there's a parallel self version of me that's wearing a jacket right now. And there's a parallel version of me that isn't wearing a jacket, you know? Guys, the idea of parallel selves has to do with the potential of life, right? I'm talking about the potential of our world, right? You might look at a child and be like, what's the potential of this kid? Is this kid going to be a good kid? But now I'm trying to tell you, what is the potential of your world? In that time where I was considering parallel selves to my being, I managed to create interactive possibilities in my mind. So I'll give you an example, like the time where it was most real for me. There was 1 week, I don't remember when it was, years ago, I think. 1 week where I felt, I can't explain to you how I knew this, how I felt this, why it was like this, but I felt that I had to be inactive. I legit felt that my parallel selves in other dimensions were connected to this self right now, and the karma or their value of their expression, the consequence of the life was being divided between all of them. So what that means is, imagine there's parallel universes. In one universe, Mr. Within, from just giving 10 talks, got millions and millions of views. In another parallel universe, Mr. Within gave 2,000 talks and it still hasn't anything happened. Like, you know. What I'm trying to tell you is that for 1 week, I felt I have to behave differently so there could be opportunities for my parallel selves in other dimensions, which I could feel, I could not see. See, you can feel what you're being. You cannot see what you're being sometimes. You know, you can feel you have a mind. You cannot see your mind. So anyways, what I'm trying to say is that it's not too much of a far-fetched idea. This is Mr. Within's kind of proof that how you are standing in the presence of your future self. I've given this is an argument of my own design. I'm very proud of it. But pretty much when I realized it was very profound. I pretty much realized, imagine yesterday, okay, I gave a talk yesterday. Today, I can remember myself yesterday giving a talk. What does this mean? My future self can always remember the past. This is logically accurate. Your future self remembers your past, but your past self cannot know your future self, or as poetically I said in one talk, remembering your future, it cannot know it. Do you see what I'm saying? I'm pretty much saying, if right now I can remember yesterday, then the version of me who's going to give a talk tomorrow is right now remembering me. Pretty much I'm telling you right now, you are the memory of your future self. Ta-da! So what does that mean, you're the memory of your future self? That means the way you are being present now is suggesting what sort of information the future you has to work with. So, standing in the presence of your future. Now, the idea gets more complex as we go deeper into this rabbit hole. The idea is that we are wondering about the future of form. We are also wondering about how future forms remember the present form. And also the idea that the future can be beyond form. So if my future self moves faster than the speed of light, do you know, I can try to see it, but I cannot. You see, this is the idea. Because we cannot see, we assume non-existent or empty. Do you know? Imagine what the future self could be. Let's start from the future. So imagine human beings have, I mean, pretty much it's collectivity. Right now we're idolizing our individuation, our individuality. In the future we're going to idolize our collectivity. These Mr. Within talks are the start of that era. I am standing in the presence of my future, in this, of the future, in the sense that this world I'm in will be present for the future. There's so many ways this sentence can have meaning. Right now I am existing in a location where many will come to exist. You know what it is? It's like after this life, it's kind of like, yo man, have you been to Earth? Been there, done that. You know? Can you imagine we get to that point? It's like, hey man, I'm bored. Let's go to Mars for the weekend. You know, imagine. The day when road trips will be in outer space is the day that we know we've advanced. From listening to music in cars to realizing the whole cosmos is our beat, you know? So guys, let me see what else I can say here. So standing in the presence of your future. What do we mean by future? The future can be physical. The future can be non-physical. That's pretty much it. When we come to presence, it's also physical and also non-physical. Now, if we are to ask, what is our physical presence? We have our existence plus awareness, our mind. Existence plus consciousness. When we come to the non-physical, we just have consciousness. When it comes to the future, the physicality of the future is the external appearance of the species, let's say. And then we have non-physical. It's the internal implication or meaning of the species. Okay, so let me say it this way. Pretty much a physical entity can have a physical future, A physical entity can have a non-physical future. A non-physical entity can have a physical future. A non-physical entity can have a non-physical future. But for the non-physical entity having a non-physical future, because we need the physics to notice the change in space, so a non-physical being is not in time. So what that means is that you're like this energy, a part of your energy, like the tip of the iceberg, through the physical conscious framework, is in time. Another part of your energy is not an energy in time, it's just energy. You're just being before you're consciously noticing you're a human being. You're being. You're being alongside everything. You're in the presence of the cosmos. You're in the presence of the authority of authorities. You're in the presence of the ultimate attention of reality. You are in a real event. And you know what the ticket is? The ticket we buy to this event is our birth. When you are born, you are a participant in the human endeavor. Whether you like it or not, by looking like a human, if you have a skeleton, if you have red blood, you know, if you're a human, you know, if you have the human form, if you're an evolutionary organism, you have a responsibility to all of us. You have a responsibility to my greatest grandchild and your greatest grandchild and all of our greatest children. That's the point. When the human species lives for its whole self, its collective self. So the future might be a collective being. The future might not be a physical entity. The future of human, it could be that being a biological human organism is a phase in nature. But it's a phase that it transforms or transmutes. So standing in the presence of your future could be that you're a physical entity standing in the energy of the most advanced non-physical being that will be us. It could be that right now you're standing in the presence of your future. It could be that right now you're a being that's not manifest in the earth plane, and from the Bardo or Barzakh, you're still not Barzakh. There's another place. There's a place where the souls are before they come here. In certain religions, monotheistic religions, there's discussions of this. For example, in Islam, there's a place where the souls are. That means it's like think of it this way. It's like your soul was born before your body. Where the souls were born were in some sense not a place. So think of it this way: if we are potential energy, the energy was somewhere else. Its potential is happening here, something in those lines. Okay. Pretty much right now, as a physical being standing in the presence of my future, how do I feel about the future? The one thing I have about the future, which early on it made me upset, but I learned to live with it, accept it, and that was that I might not be here for the future. You know, guys, you don't know this. There was this show, Attack on Titan. If I hadn't seen that show, I think I would have had like some sort of mental breakdown when it came to the effort for these talks. Because there was a character in that show that said something where everybody was hopeless, and that character said, it's like, what we're doing is not meaningless. We live for those who will find the meaning one day. And so if I can't right now experience an advanced civilization, I can at least, if I can't bring about an advanced civilization in this lifetime, at least I can live for those. At least I could create the blueprints, the designs, and be like, all right, future generations, here's the contribution of my life, figure it out. You know, it could be something like that. But in reality, our minds are ahead. Our minds can visualize the advancements of civilization. If somebody said, Mr.Within, does the advanced civilization exist now? I say, behind your eyes, many types of advanced civilizations exist for the individual and for each individual. Guys, the whole point is that you gotta love your future more than what happened to you in the past and what is happening in the present. And once you live for the future, love and live for the future, you know what that means? That means that right now in 2024, there is no great system that worthy of honor aside from religions. There is nothing on a sociological, let's say, on a, I don't know how to say this. It's kind of like there is so many ideological systems that idolize, that's like great. What the systems that are great for the human being have to do with the human consequence. So religion is a great system, but it's a great system not for a physical human being. It's a great system for a soul. Religious people are not people, they are souls. The soul is in the jurisdiction of a higher authority. I thought that spirituality was like the hood of a car. You just open it up and you can see the secrets of the cosmos. No, there is an authority. There's authorizations. If you don't have authorization, you can't access. Or it could be that your energy, if you want authorization to, let's say, the higher planes poetically, it would be something in the lines where you can't be human. So if you want to stay human and also see the truth of reality, it's kind of difficult because the truth of reality is not just human. And this shouldn't scare you, it should fascinate you. There's something else here. It's kind of like how Terence McKenna said, there's another tenant in the room. Aside from the human force, the human effort, there's something else here. There is something that is watching intelligence activate. Do you know what? Let me tell you what's going to happen when an advanced civilization is going to come. There's going to be guardians and stewards of the advanced civilization. There's going to be beings that are born that they're not going to feel like individuals anymore. They're going to feel they are their species. And when you feel your species, once I think I was in nature and I thought like, all right, I'm a human being. Is there a way I can feel all of humanity? And when I attempted, it was as if my mind opened up this massive landscape. It's like when I was trying to feel my species, my mind opened up a gigantic like server of a city. And it was as if all the different parts, and it's kind of like you suddenly get this feeling of all the laughter that's being on the planet, but you also feel all the fucked up moments that could be happening right now. All the moments where people's days are getting fucked up right now, right? Let me tell you what the attitude's going to be. The attitude's going to be that you are such an advanced being and you deserve such a great advanced human civilization that you have to be advanced from now on till the end of time in the hopes that others see the effort that pushes one into novelty. That's what most people are lacking. You know what I realize, honestly, guys, even though a part of me has like this manity side, this aspect of the ego, but aside from that, it's honestly to advance the species. What's the point of feeling good when everybody else is feeling bad? What's the point of being advanced in a world that isn't advanced? Something, in some sense, it's let me tell you what it is. You know what it is? It's like I was born in this world, and then suddenly, out of nowhere, I heard a shout. Like a roar, like something louder than, imagine like 1,000 times louder than a lion's roar, right? And you know what that was? That was the roar of a species that's waking up. You see, it's like the species is like a bunch of lions that think they're sheep, and they're like, yo man, we've built a civilization for sheep. We're lions. We're not used to eating all this grass. We're not used to being in this fenced area. That the human effort is in some sense one of freedom. Let me tell you something bizarre. I have had this vision, I've written about this in my sci-fi, that the human being is not actually meant to walk. We are meant to float. I think some force changed the gravity of the universe of Earth. I think the gravity of Earth wasn't like this. When I look at like things on, for example, you look at pyramids of Giza, you look at stuff like that, like stuff that we're like, how the hell could these guys move it? Like it could have been that there was a different, you know, I mean, of course, maybe scientists will deny this 100% because I don't know. I think I know to some degree. I think I know that the temperature of the cosmos influences its speed. And the speed of change influences time. So if I move as fast as the speed of light, I would disappear to you. Can you imagine? Imagine in the future you had an ability to get out of situations at the speed of light. You know? Imagine you're in an awkward moment. And you're like, hey, what time is it? Everybody looks at the clock, you've disappeared. My dear humanity, Mr. Within is an archetype that comes as a backup system, not as a backup system, but comes really. That means there was a time where I got this feeling that every civilization right now, every possible planet that has reached this level of, let's say, has excelled to the level of Earth, anytime a civilization anywhere in manifestation in cosmic existence needs to advance, okay, there comes a Mr. Within. Now, if the civilization needs to internally advance, it's a Mr. Within. If it's externally, it's a Mr. Without, imagine. Imagine in a parallel universe, there's this dude that looks exactly like me called Mr. Without, and he's trying to tell everybody, yo, you're too in your minds. Come out. Come out of your minds, people. You know? But now I'm here like, yo, people, you're too much in the outer world. You're too much into stuff. You're the value of physicality is more than the value of the meaning of the physicality. So when the non-physical meaning is less than the physical meaning, you are shackled to form. Oh. You know, it's life is very difficult, you know, because when I'm telling you to love your future, I'm telling you to love every human being that has existed and will exist. It doesn't matter like what they were. Okay, it's not a pick and choose game. We're all the human species. That means Gandhi was a member of the human species, and so was fucking Hitler. Okay, Martin Luther King was a member of the species, and so was Genghis Khan. Right? So what it is that it's a human effort. It's a system. And a system, there are closed systems and open systems. A closed system repeats. Most human beings are living lives that are closed systems. You're pretty much doing the same thing every day, right? But there has to be some factor that's new, right? So the novelty adds a new experience. The new experience updates the context of the mind, of your memory. So what that means is you become a new being when you experience a new being. So that's all we need. We just need advancement. We just need maybe like 1 million people to behave advanced, and the rest will be like, yo. Can you imagine? Right? Can you imagine? Let me tell you what the fucked up thing is. It's 2024. It's fucking 2024, right? And all the celebrities in media are like, yo, look at me. I've achieved something you guys haven't. It's like, get the fuck out of here. Do you know? I'm telling you, man, it's people worship. We're in the era of people worship. Okay? Worshiping God is something else, but I'm saying people worship is kind of effed up. Right? People worship means an incomplete system has given authority to an incomplete system to manage it. Why do you think I suddenly, like, you know, after let's say a decade of, in some sense, piloting the inner realms and talking about metaphysics, why do you think I suddenly, you know, closed there is greater presences than us here. But the human being, because it's under the impression it's the greatest of its own world, it's acting like, let me tell you what it is. We're not the boss. We're not the boss. Okay? Now, the modern world is like, yo, man, you're the boss of your own life. But excuse me, how can you be the boss of your own life when there is so many unknown variables and uncontrollable factors out of the moment? And the atheists are like, yo, man, how are people still religious? Can't they see the fiction? Hey, man, a lot of reality is fucking fiction. Space, I cannot see space, yet I am accepting it. I cannot see time, yet I am accepting it. I cannot see your brain, yet I am accepting you have a brain. There is so many things that in life you have faith, right? I was seeing this like preacher, and this guy was like, yo, man, unless I have 100% proof, I cannot have this faith you speak of. And the guy was like, 100% proof? It's like, get out of here, right? You go to the drugstore, do you see the chemicals of the pharmacy of the medicine you get? No, you don't. That's what the guy was saying in the video. It was a cool argument. Right? So there is so many things that our mind assumes it knows, because what else can it do? It has to do something. But the thing is, this is the shock factor of your life. When you realize your eyes are not the only eyes you can look life through. When that moment comes, you're gonna laugh, and you're gonna see how I'm talking now. You're not physically, you're a form that has a time span. Let's say you're a shape that in 100 years you change, kind of like a bell curve, and it ends. So the physical life is a bell curve. As it goes up to the peak and as it goes down, technology is going to bring everything to the peak of the bell curve. You know, it's kind of bizarre because I don't know what the advanced civilization is going to look like actually. I don't know if 8 billion human beings are going to like be so disorganized that they're going to destroy themselves, or they're going to be so organized that they're going to recycle the chaos that's happening all around the planet into new orders. You have to live for something. I don't know how people are doing it. I don't know how people are living their lives without serving something bigger than themselves. I don't know how you're doing it. I think the only way you're doing it is that you've made the world smaller. It's to avoid the collective responsibility of advancing your species. Like, all we need is freaking advanced stations all around the planet where human beings, any human being, they can go and start communicating. The thing is that this world of ours, there is a priority. That means it's like if we prioritize certain things, take precedence before others, right? If you honor the future of yourself, that honorable future self should be living in an honorable world. In the honor of the greatest possibility of our species, we stand in the presence, you are standing in the presence of the future you are creating. You know, I had a vision. You might not believe it, but before giving this talk, I wanted to give the name of the talk, like, an army of the winged humanity. And for a second, I was just visualizing, yo, man, if we could fly, how different would life be? How many lives would be saved? How many lives are being lost because we only have access to two-dimensional, like we're moving on a plane. I can't wait. That would be so awesome. You know, guys, this is what I'm gonna kind of give the viewers as an exercise. I want you to write the word future on a piece of paper at the middle of it in a big way, like write it in a big font size, and put that piece of paper somewhere and sit down and look at it. Look at that piece of paper with the word future written on it until you know something about your own future. And once you know, go rip that piece of paper and go live it. Because honestly, it's concentration. Where's your attention? Is your attention on how miserable the past was? Is your attention on how inefficient the present is? Or is your attention on how efficient the future can be? They have left nothing. Like what? The past was effed up. We were freaking savages, right? The present is still effed up. Countries are at war. People are cruel. Do you know what I'm saying? So the only thing left is like, yo, man, yo, have hope. It's like, okay, my hope is in the future only, you know? Anyways, guys, thank you for listening. You're standing in the presence of your future. You're also standing in the presence of all of our futures. And if your presence is great, you have given all of us a great present. Thank you.